David Fincher's direction and Aaron Sorkin's writing.
Love him or hate him, you have to admit that Aaron Sorkin has come
Aaron
to a
Sorkin's
unique
best
position
position
in
this
contemporary
is
Hollywood right now.
best score winner.
Sorkin is worth
accelerated dialogue. His skill for dialogue and dramatic writing means that Sorkin is now as the Aaron Sorkin is one of the few screenwriters whose name alone and the industry perfect.
Whether it be a book, poems, the news, movies, or simply just telling a friend a story about something that happened to you, we all find ourselves listening or telling stories on a daily basis. So today, I'll be talking about one particular storyteller, or screenwriter in specific, one of whom I'm sure you might have gathered by now. Aaron Sorkin. But what exactly is screenwriting? Well, according to Google, it means the activity or process of writing screenplays. But that's lame, so to make a long story extremely short, back during the silent age of film, screenwriting, according to Google's definition, wasn't really screenwriting. Filmmakers merely wrote down a couple of ideas of what they wanted to show and then shot it until Mr. George Mellies came along and made a trip to the moon. He wrote down a blueprint for the cast and crew, and when sound and dialogue came into the picture, screenwriters emerged and became architects of film. Without them, there is no story. How did being able to have sound change the game? Well, besides it completely changing how films were produced, it engaged audiences and pulled them into the story more than visuals ever could. Dialogue specifically became an essential part of film because it revealed a character's personality, background, motivations, and their emotions. Dialogue was a way to advance the plot, create conflict, and add subtext to a story. Also, it was a way to make a movie memorable. Memorable lines of dialogue can be iconic and contribute to the lasting impact of a film. Dialogue is action, and a good writer can make it rhythmic, which is why Sorkin absolutely loved dialogue, and why it's the main thing he's known for. If his name doesn't ring any bells for you, maybe you'll recognize these movies. He's most known for The Social Network, Moneyball, The Trial of the Chicago 7, A Few Good Men, and Molly's Game, all of which were nominated at the Academy Awards for Best Screenplay. I chose to do this essay on Sorkin because I've always felt the same way toward dialogue as he has. I've always clinged to and been engaged in dialogue with rhythm, subtext, personality, and wit. And coming across Aaron Sorkin, whose films are basically just people talking with purpose, while also being heavily inspired by fact and true stories, movies I've always loved to watch, I had to learn more about him. So, who exactly is he? Aaron Sorkin is not only a screenwriter, but he's also a playwright and director. He was born in the Big Apple.
Every time my arms reach out for you push them away.
Sorkin started out as a drama major at Syracuse University, where he graduated from in 1983, and told himself that he was going to pursue stage acting. He started doing some odd jobs for some money until he found his love of dialogue. He started doing some dramatic writing, and from then on, he was a writer. He mainly wrote plays until his third playwright, also known as A Few Good Men, hit big with audiences, and it was sold to Hollywood. After that, so many opportunities for him came up, so he left the stage for a bit and went into the writer's medium, TV writing. He wrote shows like The West Wing, Sports Night, Studio 60. West Wing won about 9 Emmys in its first season, and that set a name for Sorkin. Sorkin wrote another show that didn't do too hot, so he went back to writing for the stage until 2010, I'd say his definitive huge break in the film industry. He wrote The Social Network, a movie that made $224 million in the box with a budget of $40 million, winning him his first Oscar and Golden Globe. From then on, almost all of the screenplays he wrote were nominated at the Academy Awards.
And the Oscar goes to Aaron Sorkin, The Social Network.
The BAFTAs.
Aaron Sorkin, welcome to the BAFTAs.
Well, it's great to be here.
Or the Golden Globes.
The Golden Globe goes to Aaron Sorkin.
His impact was so huge that people started realizing how important the role of being a screenwriter was. He became as famous as the directors that he worked with, and his name alone could get a film greenlit. Even from his beginnings, from A Fury to Men to his TV writing, he was setting a name for himself, and after The Social Network, it was a done deal. His name was set. More of the average entertainment consumer knew his name. Shows like Suits, House, 30 Rock, and so many more were inspired by the classic walk and talk technique that was made and popularized by Sorkin from his own TV writing days, and he inspired even more. People felt more confident in speaking about social issues and writing scripts that exceeded the normal 120 pages. He inspired novice writers with his dialogue and pacing. He was an inspiration to many. But why? Sorkin has a very distinct style, one of which you'd probably notice without even seeing that he wrote the film you're watching. Sorkin uses classic techniques like interruptions and repetitions in his dialogue to add realness to it, tension, and conflict. But what makes him unique is that most of his scripts exceed 120 pages because a lot of his scenes are mainly just dialogue. He writes based on true stories. The Social Network was about 2 lawsuits against Zuckerberg for the founding of Facebook. Moneyball was about the general manager, Billy Beane of the Oakland A's, for reinventing baseball using statistics.
The Oakland A's have set a new American League record with their 20th consecutive win. And this is a game nobody here will ever forget.
The trial of the Chicago 7 was based on the trial of 8 anti-war Vietnam activists for the aftermath of the 1968 Democratic National Convention, and so on. Aaron likes to write about skilled people, so he makes sure the audience doesn't feel patronized by decidedly including explanations and his dialogue in the most natural way he could. Sorkin also includes many monologues in his films that work perfectly because he slowly reveals information about the character or the conflict in the scene it's placed in, engaging the audience and keeping them in their seats for what that character might say. These are more or less techniques of his, but style? Well, that's different. Sorkin loves quick and witty comebacks. Stuff, let's be honest, almost nobody would come up with.
Those things too.
Then why aren't we doing anything about it? Because we're gentlemen of
No,
Harvard?
it's because you're not thinking how it's gonna look.
How's it gonna look?
Like my brother and I are in skeleton costumes chasing the Karate Kid around a high school gym.
Cam,
Aaron
He's
Sorkin's
violated
techniques
Massachusetts.
and style are so distinct that I myself can't help but be inspired by him. I love his wit and humor along with his deeply complex characters, but mainly I hope to have formed my style so much that it can be, well, my own. I have enjoyed all of the movies I've seen of his, and I can't wait to see what he has to put out in the future. Now, here's the speech he gave at his old university, plus some music for my works cited.
Don't ever forget that you're a citizen of this world, and there are things you can do to lift the human spirit, things that are easy, things that are free, things that you can do every day. Civility, respect, kindness, character. You're too good for schadenfreude. You're too good for gossip and snark. You're too good for intolerance. And since you're walking into the middle of a presidential election, it's worth mentioning that you're too good to think people who disagree with you are your enemy. Don't ever forget that a small group of thoughtful people can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. Rehearsal's over. You're going out there now. You're going to do this thing. How you live matters. You're going to fall down, but the world doesn't care how many times you fall down as long as it's one fewer than the number of times you get back up.